Okay, the bond and the two. When they met in the geometry, as we have been exploring, they shattered. So the way in which that we are going to be seeing the shattering happens to be that it is the coming together that caused the, you could say, explosion. In the bond and the two, what to do? We are looking at the origination of you. There has never been, never will be anybody completely like thee. Not in this lifetime, not in any other. Precisely because of our mechanical structure. Every incarnation you have experienced has been distinct, verily different, I say, according to the nature of this day. What you're looking at is that we've always had a different design crystal. The one precious life of this universalization principle that this being happens to be embodied in. When it comes to a different illusion, it is because of the different circumstances, events, compatibilities, and contrasting realities to which you are subjected to because of the very nature of you, your relational dynamic to what is true, not just inside of you, but also on the outside. This integrity of being, if you did not have this capability of being witness to and observer of the nature of you, without it, you wouldn't have the authenticity and the verification of your nature, your innate capability of being love. This is what we are here to be. Love is a beingness. Now, love is where each of us is designed to find not only our place in space, but our direction too. So the direction inside of you that is lived out or unfolded over this life experience. Love is about surrendering to what is this nature of being, the recognition and the manifestation of you being completely and utterly unique. And with that being said, I welcome you back to the Human Design System and our Rave Cosmology 1, the Bond 2, where we have this transformative exploration of the universal principle, the deepest mechanics. And I just realized my phone is over here, so let me turn it off. The deepest mechanics in the world of consciousness, us being exponents in consciousness, embodied in flesh, this principle of the unified system of design crystals. So let's continue exploring these intriguing concepts with our next class, which happens to be that we are looking at the personality. So the creation of the personality crystals, what is all this about? It is because of the prime design crystal, that shattering, that creative personality crystals, which define our individual consciousness. So Ra is going to teach us about the center, the camel and the dog as cosmic archetypes. So we'll get an introduction to those things, and then we'll continue exploring in the next couple of classes. So our personality crystals being fragments of the shattered whole. This is the most important thing to understand that we are going to dive into today. And we'll also get introduced to the center and the 66 sides, as well as the 16 faces, but particularly the 88 alphas. I remember a show Rock called Channel 88 on Laveena Archives, if you've been around that long. So you'll see that we're going to explore the programming of the totality of life across the cosmos. So the evolutionary stages will continue next week. And the illusion of our existence emerging through self-reflected consciousness is going to be a primary topic of discussion, the exoteric and esoteric. So in our cosmic connection, if you have gone through fixed stars with us, you'll remember Arcturus, as far as that star within 24 degrees of Libra, where it's linked to inspiration and success. This is where the creative potential of the personality crystals was birthed. So in our cosmology, we know everything is absolutely, utterly linked. Nothing is living in isolation. Everything is, even though there's an illusion of separation, everything is connected, everything vibrating, everything important, down to the very cellular, even mitochondria makeup of what it is to be. So because all of us are hurtling through space and time, there's this, we left off last week in the shock or violence of initiation. Expansion and contraction is the nature of our reality, just like yin and yang. So as this is a part of life, as natural as breathing, cells taking things in, exchanging information and substance and structure, we who are human breathing in, breathing out, and then the cycles of evolution. Remember that this cosmic linking is the thing that we are wanting to see, not just the big picture view, but also down to the precise detail. Ra says the bundle, billions of years, guided by the monopole, one with the design, in movement towards the possibility of expressing love, eventually reached its initiating place, meeting the star on the wall. So the stars on the wall kind of touched upon that last time we met. And it's very strange indeed. Remember, again, this is the like cosmic fables or bedtime stories, gray courses according to Ra. So we'll do our best to take this abstract concept and land it within some logic in order to understand with practicality what it is to be the nature of we, Yunu, sovereign and free. In this illustration, what we are looking at is that we're attempting to show you the bundle smashing into one of the stars on the wall. Remember, we're all within something, still currently gestating. So from our perspective, we could consider this to be absolutely cataclysmic, wouldn't we? This kind of event that we glimpse through telescopes, supernova, or colliding galaxies, explosions so vast their shockwaves still ripple across the universe, what Rob would call the biverse, a billion years later. But this isn't just destruction. This is creation. We think of it like the violent, necessary chaos of a star's death that seeds new planets and galaxies. We're looking at this concept being at a scale that's beyond our finite comprehension. But here's the key. What we're seeing is that this is a mechanical development that's not random, that's not accidental. It is something like what happens when a fetus is organizing itself from the form of its raw biology. And that there is, in this meat suit originally, we had to arrange ourselves into systems. So our bodily systems, each one of these systems, intricately connected to every other system within our body. If we were to rip out our circulatory system or our skeleton, obviously we wouldn't continue to systematically be a wholeness or a unity. The physiology and the psychology married into this body and this being is one of the things that makes us utterly unique. So same thing happening. The biverse, when this shattering happened, was being shaped into something, and that is a form. And just as a fetus has no awareness of what humanity might bring when it is born and grows into the human construct of what it is a part of, so too, we inside this process are still at a fetal and innate capability of attuning to the creativity, the fecundity of what it is to be within this construct, this matrix, as part and parcel of the larger all that is. So every collision that happens, it's part of the form that's being gestated, that's vibrating. And every collision, every billion-year delay, like the bundle's slow journey from before this triggering event, we are seeing that we are a part of a deeper architecture of the all that is. So we are not alone, although it may seem to be lonely. We are all vibrating, still gestating, a part of the bigger, greater picture. And when we look at this cosmic baby pictures, like as in before we were born, we can see that this isn't the end. It's the spark of the potential life for the biverse to manifest itself into form. And remember, though it may seem impossible, all of this unfolds on timelines that dwarf our human understanding and, of course, our human history. We're watching cosmic gestation at birth, before birth, really. So if we pull back the veil of how consciousness is conditioned at the cosmic level, the program runs on two parallel tracks. We have our exoteric reality and we have our esoteric understanding. Both of them are essential partnerships, absolutely fundamental to grasp. So if we look at the exoteric first, we're talking about science. And science tells us that stars are neutrino engines. These neutrinos are ghostly particles that flood the universe. It connects all of us. Neutrinos are the data stream, as we recall. It's the raw code of our cosmic programming. And remember, when it comes to what is or what are the agents of the programming, we are looking at anything that is endowed with a design crystal, the crystals of consciousness, where the neutrino is feeding through. So let's imagine it's going through Jupiter, out through the other side and into me and you, whatever moment we were born. And that is our expansiveness. That is our teaching. That is our capability of all of the Jupiterian things. You know, Jupiter either can be on the one side of things, can be very, like I said, expansive, jovial, really about teaching, verbose, being able to have some kind of capability of being something that is broadcasting, because it is absolutely creating some of the neutrino stream. Now, on the flip side of things, Jupiter can also get green with envy. It can be a bit greedy. It can be wanting to have more and more food or information, nourishment of any kind, food and information. Those are both elements I enjoy as nourishment, not only feeding the body, but also the brain and the mind, as it were. So we're looking at where it gets deeper now. We understand that there are neutrinos going through items that imprint me and you. It isn't just exoteric, as in physical. Esoteric side now, stars are not just mechanical reactors. They're definitely not dumb. They are alive with energy. They're crystal-endowed, just like Jupiter, just like you and me. So let's say if we imagine a personality crystal at the star's core, because it is a lens that structures, creates the neutrinos into a way in which we experience, or it extends information out through the cosmos into other crystals and out into the great beyond. So we're looking at each star's crystal imparting a unique signature. Just like you and me have a signature, so too do stars. Like a broadcaster where it's transmitting its own station, its own innate intelligence, its station of influence. And whether we know it or not, you and me, we're all receivers tuned into very specific cosmic feeds. And these stellar influences bombarding you and me, everybody, we're all going to interpret it differently. So if we imagine as a human being, we have this physical construct that seems to be finite. Yes, I end here. And yet, because we are receivers of this cosmic data stream, the neutrino ocean, you, me, everybody, it's moving through us and it's part of the cosmic consciousness. Indeed, what's happening is that there is absolutely something outside, it seems to be, of you, moving through everything and coming into you. That mutation that happens within you because of this neutrino stream happens to be that it's transforming things. It's mutating. You are gestating. You are alive and vibrating. So what's happening truly, if we think about what it is to be human, we think about mutation requiring heat. We think about information being a kind of feed. And we think about what it is to be a receptivity everywhere inside of thee. Look at the openness, the white areas of your design, and you are going to see receptivity that happens within the cosmic consciousness that you are a part of. It is not separate. It is not outside of you. It is within you. So if you can come to an awareness of this objectivity within the subjectivity of what it is to be, this is this binary of your conscious awareness of what it is to be truly as an objective nature of the role being a part of totality. So what we're looking at, if we can rewind to the bundle shattering, okay? Bundle shattering, remember, this is the thing that we are exploring, just in case Jupiter happens to be very expansive with me again. We shall start to see what is absolutely essential to grasp, not just the exoteric, but the esoteric as well, the thing that is not necessarily studied within the universities, you know, the essential nature of our reality. When we look at the nature of what it is to be a specific frequency, we're seeing that life is not accidental. The first stars being architects of the primordial soup, what would become galaxies, and this is when the programming truly began. Neutrinos encoded by crystals, crystals of consciousness, imprinting the potential of form. Remember, we are all experiments of consciousness in form. How much consciousness can this form hold? Or how much consciousness can move through me and you? When it's just an individual, is it different than when there are two people, two beings? Than when there are 3 to 5 beings? Than when there are 10 to 16? Than when there are 81? Obviously, you can see that there is more consciousness within thee as far as the connective field between you and the other when there are more than 1 or 2 together. They're not only more information, quite literally, because each of us walking packets of information. Oftentimes people would say that we are walking water bottles, really, you know, imbibed with all this information. Take all the water out of us, obviously, we are not alive. So the water carries information, the cellular makeup of the structure of what you happen to be. And when you're communing with another, vibrating, there is more information that is exchanging. It does not have to be verbal. Please understand, many of us have a connectivity field to the cosmic consciousness because of the differentiated uniqueness. I'm talking about your tonal cognition, but everybody's going to experience it at a different level. Smell, taste, touch, inner and outer vision, feeling, that kind of energy or awareness within the physiology that is, it seems to be to me like it's a repeater, but an awareness of a different frequency, because the mind is going off of the body. It's running off of the hardware of the form. So we are all, each of us, transmissions. And when we have more than one together, when there's 2, it's a bigger energy, a bigger aura, that's true. 3 to 5 people, we are seeing even larger auric frequency. When we get to 10 to 16, even further, larger, bigger of an auric frequency and energy. And of course, we have the gene pool at 81. So for more on that, you know, it's within the family practice and work aspect of the human design system. Now here in this illustration, the bundle penetrated to the core of the star of the wall. We are seeing the cracking that ripped apart this particular star. The cracking, ripping apart a star. Can you imagine? The prime magnetic monopole was disembodied, or disembedded, I should say, from the prime design crystal. So the prime magnetic monopole was disembedded from the prime design crystal as the crystal itself shattered, according to Ra, obviously. Now, the prime design crystal gave us the potential for life as we know it, this primordial existence of what we seem to be. So this is one of the most critical concepts in the crystal mechanics, that there is a profound relational dynamic between the monopole, single pulling, monopole magnet, and the design crystal. Why? Because the moment that they separate, something extraordinary is happening. You now have the potential for life on this plane. And according to Ra's teachings, each and every one of us is carrying an aspect of the original shattering. We were all there. Remember how cute we were? Well, not really, not yet, because this is the moment of shattering, but we were all there. You, me, everybody, everything, all there. Remember, this was the condensing. So at the very moment the monopole disembeds, it does so through the shattering of the design crystal itself. It isn't just a fracture in space-time. It is a cosmic event of unimaginable significance. And here's why this matters to every single being, every one of us, in that each of us carrying that fragment of the original design crystal, that shattered design within us. We were literally physically there, and that means then originally we were one equate thing, even though this is dark matter and what that brings. If you can think about that, as far as the crystals that structure our very being, participating within this primordial drama, the original shattering, our geometry, our resonance, our vibrating. It's the continuity of that first shattering that stretched throughout and across space and time. We are not just observers of mechanics, we are living extensions, breathing, being. This is the birth of the Rave personality crystals that we are looking at within the Shattering. So that monopole was hurtled away from the mass and caught in cosmic spin. Now here's where it gets even more extraordinary. When we're looking at the Shattering, it doesn't just disembed the monopole from our design crystal. It's not just any old spin. It's a rotation at such a velocity, so extreme, that trying to picture this would break your mind. It would drive you insane, trying to imagine the spin that's so fast we can't even see it, really. So the spin being a byproduct of the shattering. And when the dervish, if you've ever seen those people, they wear hats, they've got a kind of like a kafta or a long, my mind wants to say dress, and they're usually men, but what you're seeing, remember the dervishes that are spinning, the celebration of what it is to be. When they dance, they're not just performing the spinning ritual, it is the celebration of love, which initiated consciousness. It's a recanting, it's a recounting, it's an imitation of that primordial spin when the monopole first shattered. So it's not about, yes, maybe it's a bit of our cosmic mythology and kind of poetry, but we're looking at what is embedded within our bones, our cellular memory, you could say, so to speak. Every ancient culture knows this, even children to this day. Have you ever done the spin? Do you remember what that brings, that dizziness? So Celts have, this Celtic people have that spiral. I have one, actually, I'm wearing it currently. Now the primordial spiral, the Sufis with their ecstatic turns, and us children who would spin and collapse laughing, dizzy, or learning how to spin without getting dizzy. This is because spinning is the nature of our initiation, what brought us into form. It's how form emerges from chaos. How does it get ordered? Look up at the sky. If we looked through a telescope, we'd see the spinning of the galaxies. Yes, it's how form emerges. Through this dance, it defies dizziness when it comes into that place in space that rests with the order and whatever that brings. So if we can think of Ra tells the story of watching the ice skaters, the girls practicing their spins, just a mastery of that capability of being able to spin without the dizziness, being able to move on and slide right on through after that whirling is a beautiful thing to see. So if we can scale that principle up into the cosmos, now it's not just about the monopole and everything exploding. It's really about spinning itself apart, and its disintegration is a kind of grand Maya dance, the divine pirouette, you could say. And that ancient back in the way of that day. So its ability to hold itself together collapses because it spins so fast. So spinning so fast, it is utterly collapsed, not just shattering, literally being torn or teared apart. So it tore itself apart upon impact. And the spin was more powerful than the prime magnetic monopole's capacity to keep its clusters together. And that's the way in which Ra describes it to us. Every fragment of the shattering of the design crystal was seated with a monopole as an aspect from the cluster. So if we can truly grasp the elegance of what this means, when the monopole tore apart, it didn't just scatter randomly. Every single crystal, every fragment from the shattered design came paired with a tiny aspect of the magnetic monopole. So that means then it shows us how each one of us has an aspect of the prime. So the fragments of the core all begin to manifest their individual aspects. So Ra will give us some examples. It was the dog that built the body of our sun. And simultaneously, with the initiation of the larger life principle, the biverse, we call it the child or poetically, or fetus, whatever we want to call it, zillions of aspects exist as unified design monopole. So we're looking at, there's still this potential awaiting for their moment to disembed. And their purpose is to complete this form, think of the totality, this form's formation, ultimately capable of housing true consciousness. You and me, everybody, we're still experiments of consciousness embodied, encased in flesh and form. So there were many other ingredients in this bundle when it fused with the star. The prime magnetic monopole before this even could be best described as a cluster. The power, remember, of a monopole is to attract. So the power of the monopole attracting, and also each one of us holding us together in this illusion of separation at this stage of the original explosion or cosmic whirling. We're looking at all of its aspects, monopoles, in harmony with the single prime design crystal. They were as one. And in this nature of original being, we are now seeing when the design crystal was shattered, that there was a harmony being broken. It was broken. So the law of the monopole is to hold on to everything, holding me to me and you to you. And the shattering destabilized the original monopole cluster so that we could have this separation into the illusion of what we seem to be, separate from the totality. You are seeing the shattering destabilized the monopole cluster. It destabilized our monopole cluster from the bond. So if we look and turn to the formula itself, this is where the magic of fractals becomes tangible. Ra wanted us to see this, show it to us from the heart of the architecture of the original crystal of consciousness. You can see that we have the center and the 88 alphas on our screen. This is the first time in the cosmological language where we describe something very specific, very precise, the specific crystals within the shattering of the crystal, the design, the bond, and that bundle. So all of these crystals that we're looking at on this image are the aspect that surround the center. So remember, where is it coming from? It's coming from the primordial, original prime design, the bond. Number B for body, the bond. And yet, what is it to become? It is to become personality crystals. Remember the yin, yang. The yang is an illusion that operates out of the yin. So we're looking at an incredible thing to understand, that this is surrounding the very center. See it? This is where, first of all, the business of the center is where we are going to explore, where we dive into. It's not the middle. Notice how it's not in the exact precise middle. Ra says, it's not in the middle. And this is not a riddle. It's just the center is simply not in the middle. If you've ever shattered something, you know it doesn't necessarily shatter right there at the middle. It's shattering off to the side. And what this leads to is that there are some of you, particularly me, I know this to be true. I'm way out there at the edge of the cosmos. I am way out there. I'm so far away from the center. I'm like at the most extreme end. This is where I happen to be. Now, what about you? Would love to see. According to the nature of what we came to be, if we could imagine that we have a crystal and you pass a beam of light through it, when we watch the light flow through, filtered by the crystal, this is a manifestation of a pattern, a rainbow pattern, isn't it? So we see, imagine then that as you shatter this crystal into untold trillions of fragments, what you're going to see and find is that each fragment having the same beam of light passing through it will manifest a unique pattern. All that is, according to Ra, except one. One fragment will manifest the same pattern in microcosm. One. And that, my friends, that is the center. So, as the same potential as the whole has, the center has. The center represents the microcosm crystal processing the whole's potential. A really profound concept. This crystal is the center itself, residing at the shattering's very core, the heart and core, as far as what it happens to be and bring, the center. So if we can imagine witnessing a crystal shatter in extreme slow motion, ooh, that's kind of fun, we're looking at not just seeing the cracks that are spreading, but also observing the precise moment when the fragmentation begins. The core is not, again, at the geometric center. We're looking at the origin point from which all outward expansion occurs. That's the center. Notice the triangle. It's not an accident, that shape. So just like the shattering crystal, I'm going to play that again because that's quite beautiful. All right. Just like the shattering crystal, our universe expands in such a way where every point appears to move away from a central origin, not just because it's the center, but because it's the reference frame from upon which the life, the expansion unfolds. So this core fragment is very, very special. The center retains the original perspective of the entirety, of that totality of the whole crystal before the shattering. It doesn't hold the full original complexity because it doesn't have everything where it happens to be, but it remembers the start, perhaps even the beginning before the start. It mirrors how, in our cosmology, certain fundamental properties like the cosmic microwave background that gives us a glimpse of the universe's early state of being. We're seeing, if we could think of the core as a fixed reference, even as other fragments fly outward. We're looking at their trajectories being defined by their relationship to it. What's the relationship to the core? Here we see the camel and the dog, these two unique aspects that once cradled the center between them, the camel and the dog. These crystals aren't just abstract. They literally exist within our sun, our local star. You can think of the sun not just as this hot ball of gas emitting light, but a projector of a coded energy. Yes, light, frequency, neutrino ocean, all that happens to be. The camel and the dog filter the cosmic energy, imprinting patterns out into you, me, and further into the solar system and beyond, because of the nature of what it happens to be. Camel and dog shape how our consciousness processes reality, or at least the way in which our consciousness is experienced, all of us being programmed on a day-to-day basis. This is the way it happens to be. So when you look at the nature of the four corners that we're adding on, besides the center, the camel, and the dog, what we're looking at, the last fragments to break away from the center of the first generation of the fractal, we watch as we see the central layering. 1, 2, 3, and 4. 4 corners. We know that fractals repeat patterns at every scale imaginable. Here, the rule is very simple. Every generation moves outward in a structured layering. Always we are linking back to the center through whatever connectivity there happens to be. We could call them intermediaries, yes? Where the 4 corners, you can see, they don't actually touch the center directly. It's being sandwiched between the camel and the dog. So their connection then, these 4 corners, and what that brings, it actually takes 2 steps. First, connect to both camel or dog. You can see currently we have camel and dog, so both camel and dog, or just camel or dog. So 2 and 4 are connected to both camel and dog. 1 is connected to camel, 3 of the corner is connected to dog, so to speak, just to help us process what we're looking at, what we're seeing. It's how the system itself preserves order while everything is expanding. So if we look to the nature now of the 16 faces, that beautiful poster, my favorite, why I printed it and put it behind me, we've traced this fractal journey from the center to the camel, to the dog, to the 4 corners, and now let's expand out again into this pattern, this time into the archetypes of the godheads, if you will, the 16 faces, the next layer enclosing not only the corners and the camel and the dog, but the center, all that came before. So if we notice the progression here, 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, what we are seeing, the 1 being connected up with the center. See how it's in black? So that means 1 with the center. And we also have camel and dog, which are connecting up with the 4 corners. This isn't random. We are seeing then outside of it the 16 faces. So we're seeing 16 faces. There's the 1 and the 2 and the 3 and the 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. It is exponential, a pattern that is found in quantum states and also DNA codons. This is a representation of the 2 different lines of the fractal. We'll see that it actually breaks up into 2 parts, these 16. Okay? So we are looking, let's see, the process outside of the crystal. You see how we have the 1 and the 8, and we also have the 9 and the 16, and how they're mirroring? They are representing now outside of the prime center, two different lines of the fractal. So if I'm over here on this line of the fractal and somebody else is over there on that line of the fractal, very hard for us to really get each other. This is how the crystal shattered originally. So the further away you are on the fractal line, the harder and harder it is, you might find, to connect up with each other and grok each other. Oh, I love that word so much, grok. Grok is like to understand something so deeply, so thoroughly, it's almost as if you're ingesting or eating it, understanding it, comprehending is the closest word I can find to grok. And my beautiful ways in which I love to understand things. So the 16 faces that we are seeing, they are the master archetypes behind every god, every goddess humanity has ever prayed or bowed before or worshipped or found solace in or feared or been terrorized by. Every single one. So these archetypal energies, the 16 faces of our understanding, you could group them into kinds of energy. So here, let's think of lunar goddesses. Selene, the name of my kitty cat. Artemis, the name of our original dog. There's Hecate, not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Shangi, not sure about that one either. But across all cultures, think of the lunar principle. You have the Selene, moon goddess, Luna, Lunaria, anything to happen to be with Luni, you know? We're looking at the thing that can kind of sometimes make us feel seen. Crazy. Where we get the word lunatic is from Luna, the moon, because they often notice back in the day that anytime the moon happened to be larger in the sky, people would tend to go a little bit crazy or wacky. Now we know scientifically that when the moon happens to be big and beautiful and bold up in the sky, that we have an internal expansion of the parasites that all of us humans happen to live with, and it can kind of make us go a little bit loopy. So just a little bit of the science behind the esoteric there. One of the reasons why you might want to look into parasite cleanse if that happens to bother you. So the same goes if we can shift gears from lunatics, into the solar deities. The storm gods, we have tricksters, we have earth, we have lightning, we have all kinds of energies. It's not coincidence that it happens to be about physicality. The cosmic taxonomy connected up with our physiology. It happens to be that the 16 faces are core to the fundamental frequencies. The principles are of our reality. In that, when you study, if you happen to study with me, you know this already, the nature of doing an incarnation cross-analysis. Remember when we were studying the prime year of your training, and we started talking about the nature of the elemental I Ching. Yes, the elemental I Ching, where we go into every single gate activation through the trinaries, the lower and upper trigrams, to get a sense for what this is physically representing, linking us back to the 8 great houses of the wheel through the gates of the G. Yes, remember, this is the fundamental nature of frequency, everything vibrating, everything coming from the mythological beingness of the all-knowing and all-seeingness. This cultural variation is going to always bring a differentiation of these primordial patterns of physiology, physicality within the nature of the construct of reality. So the global orchestration directory, the GOD, gods, if you will. Isn't that funny? So 16 representative faces of what we would call the divine. In his training on the 16 faces, I remember being very much inspired by Ra sharing that in truth, we need scholars of the knowledge to dive into this level of depth of awareness and actually bring forth a label for each of the gates it could be. It doesn't have to be these synthetics that Ra chose to represent these areas within the quarter of each quarter. This is just an archetypal framing. So as an example, I happen to be born in gate 30. My sun is in the 30.3. And so what I would pick there would be, you know, the fates as far as that kind of energy. We know that the gate 30 is the gate of fates. So that one's pretty, easy to see. Other ones might be very different and might have multiplicities because of how many people and how long we've been living on this planet. There could be a tremendous number of different gods and goddesses that, or even non-dual binaries, it happens to be, that could be within these constructs. And that would be quite a fascinating exploration to see. Now, when we look at the 66 sides, okay, finally, all of that we've been talking about, the 16 faces, the 4 corners, the camel, the dog, the center, outside of that, we have the 66 sides. And this is where we observe our diverse stellar background frequency, the stellar influencing, because of the physicality, the presence of the stars there. These are aspects that are very important as component parts, pieces in terms of the programming, how they program us. They represent a very powerful incarnative force. And it's interesting. I haven't looked at everybody's star that is in my life, but when I happened to see where I happened to be far away from, you know, the center, I noticed that the primary person, the most important being in my life, was right next to me. We happened to be over here. Really, it's really interesting to see. So if we separate that out, by the way, every aspect that you're looking at has, at one time or another in the history of the development of consciousness on this planet, all of us have incarnated in various forms, not always in human form, but in forms here on this planet. It is true that there is a reincarnative principle in what to do. Just accept the nature of what it is that you are currently presently being. This is the way in which you can learn how to see and observe as an aspect of the totality, a witness to the consciousness within you. So if we look again at the core of the crystal bundle, the bundle that shattered when it collided with the stars on the wall. Isn't that beautiful, magnificent? In order to see, when we examine the core and we string it out into its component parts, we can break it down into its different pieces or representations of the energy. And if you don't know where to find yourself on the wall, don't worry. Or as having exploded through the star on the wall, don't worry, we'll get there.